everyone. Hey, big hand for Paul.
Just hear me? I just want to walk around. I just can't.
I'm gonna walk around.
Sit down.
Okay.
So it's great to be back.
Our third Ticket to Ride that we've done in the morning session. How have you been, Paul?
I've been great. I've really missed you, Mike. I mean, we really, we've reincarnated or relaunched or rebooted this podcast many times.
Well, so here's the thing. Last year, we did Ticket to Ride live like we did this morning. And that ended up being our last episode until last week, believe it or not.
We're a yearly podcast.
Nothing like consistency. But I do want to give a big shout out to Thaddeus Bouchard from Screendollars, who is now our producer on these things.
That's right, Thaddeus Bouchard.
And Brett Hoffman, if you're here anyway, I want to promise you that you're going to get bi-weekly episodes, so you can't run away from us.
That's true. That's a promise, and Thaddeus guaranteed he will edit them so quickly, so people will get them right away in a timely manner. Right, Thaddeus?
Paul, did you realize that this is the 37th edition of ShowEast?
Yeah, I think I've been to every single one. I remember I met Martin Scorsese at ShowEast years ago, and Delma Spoonmaker's amazing editor. Just starstruck like crazy.
It's amazing.
It is.
Yeah, in all actuality, so yesterday in the coming attractions piece of it, Amanda asked if there was anybody in the audience who had been to all 37. There was one guy who raised his hand.
Yeah. Actually, I've been to all of them, almost all.
There you go. What I thought we would do today, Paul, is when we last left our chat last year, we were right in the middle of work stoppages, and that had put a big kind of crimp on the release schedule, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
And we were coming up on, if you remember, when we were sitting here a year ago, we were coming up on the release of Five Nights at Freddy's. And that ended up coming out doing about $80 million and actually being one of the movies that kind of saved the year in a way.
It really set the tone for the last part of the year. And I know that last year we had a $4 billion summer, $4.095 billion to be exact, our ComScore numbers. A lot of people didn't think we'd get to $4 billion for the summer, and we did. We wound up with just over $9 billion domestically for last year. And you're right, the work stoppage is the strikes and all that put a real crimp, to say the least, in the release calendar. And just shows you the fragility of the release calendar and how important it is that an orderly release of movies, the cadence of the release of movies is so vitally important. That momentum, I've overused that term for years, but it's really true. You need to have that momentum. Keep movie going, begets movie going. People are in your theaters, being exposed to in-theater marketing and trailers for upcoming movies. That's money in the bank. That's how you keep that excitement rolling.
Well, when we talked about it last year too, we kind of laid the groundwork and said the first part of 2024 was going to be a little bumpy. That because of the way the release schedule was laid out, it wasn't going to be the easiest, road to hoe, so to speak.
That's right, and we're going to show some slides here depicting the box office at various points on the calendar of this year. And this right here, I mean, look at the great movies, but compared to 24 over 23 at this point, going into the June 14th weekend was down 28%, a pure reflection of that disruption to the calendar that caused that momentum to not happen.
Well, and what we really wanted to do is give you a snapshot. So first 6 months of the year, we go halfway through the year, we're down 28%. The top grossing movie is $271 million with Toon 2.
That's right, and that was a really key weekend, June 14th. We'll get to that for sure.
And then, of course, this is the way and it's really interesting here because, as we all know, the press goes for low-hanging fruit sometimes. And Paul, in all seriousness, Paul's kind of doing his work because he's the man who's on the front lines. He's, you've seen him on CNN, you see him on MSNBC. Anywhere that, they were taking shots at the industry, Paul was kind of defending it.
Like, don't talk bad about my industry. But it just shows, these are headlines actually from May of this year. And these are not really positive headlines at all. And it was because May typically has had a Marvel movie kick off the summer. That didn't happen this year. But Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes actually did really well in May. We don't want to forget that movie because it really did do well. But overall, compared to past Mays that had that Marvel movie as the kickoff, which for years and years in a row you had that. That wasn't there this year. Memorial Weekend, oh my God, that headlines, what I have to talk about that weekend was not fun. It was, is it the lowest Memorial Weekend in 30 years, 25 years? I'm like, come on, man, this is the, everyone in this room knows about the ups and downs of the box office. And, we have another slide.
Well, hold on. I wanted to point out a couple of things that Paul said, and that is, everything is in context and everything is in perspective. And one of the things, a lot of the studios look at the year as a portfolio approach, meaning one movie doesn't make or break whatever it happens to be. We got to get to the end of the year. Let's see how everything performed as a whole. And I know, Paul, you were kind of preaching that when we were in the summer, like, hold on, we're not quite there yet. We're still recovering from these work stoppages. Everything's trying to catch up. And I think it's important to realize, when you greenlight a movie, from the time you read about it in Deadline, where they say this movie is now going into production or whatever it is, it's anywhere from 12 to 18 months before that movie actually makes it to your screen. There's a lot of work that goes behind it. So when these work stoppages happened last year, it's like the team was disbanded and everything grinds to a halt. So it takes time for those to all kind of ramp back up. We're now as you look at the release schedule now, and we'll get to that in a second, we've caught up to kind of where that cycle was a little bit.
June really presented that, and June was a key month. And why don't we show?
Well, real quick though, I do want to go back to May for a second. First time in 17 years we did not have a Marvel movie that kicked off summer, and The Fall Guy took a little bit of heat because it didn't perform. But everybody should remember one thing, and that was Fall Guy was originally going to be a spring movie. Universal moved it to the summer, which actually everyone should be thanking them for moving it to giving something in that first week of May where there was a gap. So it was unfairly put in a position where it was compared to these movies that it's not the same genre.
Interestingly, for The Fall Guy, it was available on PVOD in its third or fourth weekend in theaters, and that weekend that it was available on premium VOD, it was number 5 at the box office.
And it just goes to show you. So, and the other thing to set up where we go from here is we're now in the middle of this, we're into the summer, we're down 28%. Everyone's looking at that back half of 23 where we had the Barbenheimer. And they're saying, how the hell are we going to get to $1 billion the way we did with those two movies?
Right.
Well, Paul.
Came along so now at 2024 years.
And this is as of this week, Monday or yesterday.
Right, so we saw the box office deficit at 28% in mid-June. Now we're down 12%, almost 12%. But look at those movies there. I mean, for me, the real turning point was post-Memorial Weekend, after all the gloom and doom headlines about Memorial Weekend being the lowest in decades. And then you had Bad Boys Ride or Die open, and that overperformed. We're like, wow, there's something going on here. There was something in the air. Then Inside Out 2 opened at $154.2 million domestically. And notably, that was the first $100 million opener of this year. And we had to get all the way to mid-June to get $100 million. Before that, June was the highest opener, but it didn't open over $100 million. So to be at that point, and then there was a succession of big movies, June into July and into August, that turned everything around.
Well, and when you look at the performance, I don't think anyone on their box office bingo card had Inside Out doing $650 million plus, or had Deadpool going to 630 or whatever it is now.
You had other movies in there in that corridor that just week after week we got the cadence back, we got the momentum back. We didn't have any illusions that we would hit $4 billion for this summer, but we got pretty darn close at about $3.8 billion. Twisters was another one that showed the experiential side, how important that is with the moving seats and that immersive.
Well, that brings up a really good point. And that brings up how important the premium formats have become in the movie-going experience. We talk about how do you differentiate yourself from watching at home, and whether you're watching in D-Box or 40X or IMAX or XD, Dolby Cinema, those are experiential ways to view a movie that really, increases.
And that's becoming an increasingly important part of the business of the PLFs. And look, we all know about price sensitivity, that audiences are really concerned about that, but when it comes to let's say a movie like Dune Part 2, if you're a Denis Villeneuve fan and you know his filmmaking prowess and his vision, are you going to opt out of seeing that in the movie theater? No way. And it's a premium experience in any theater, no matter how you slice it. But with certain movies, it seems it's like the more expensive wines on the wine list tend to do better. Well, so at least in my neighborhood, and one with Eric Tabak, we did. But it really is true that people want that premium experience, and they get that in your theaters, and it's really important. So it's that that constant being in concert between the the studios putting out the great movies and what's going on at the movie theater level is so vitally key to this industry.
I was going to say, what did you think about the idea we had 4 franchises this summer that overperformed, that were all kind of 30 plus years? We had 2 sequels. We had a Bad Boys sequel from, and we had, probably, Beetlejuice, which was, like Top Gun last year, 37 years in the making.
That's right, and that was really cool because, sometimes long gestating sequels, they don't do so well, but this year it seemed like the tried and true really played well, and I think there's 2 ways we need to look at this. One is with the blockbusters. It seems that particularly in the summer, where people are price sensitive, or they want to make a really good decision on what they're going to see, they want to know what they're getting into. Even though people sometimes say there's a lack of originality in the movies, look, if you know the brand of Bad Boys or Inside Out or the Pixar brand or Despicable Me 4, which was another family movies, animated films did incredibly well this summer. That's a category of film that's just absolutely killing it. But I thought it was great that all those older, and then look at Beetlejuice.
Well, that was one where you look at September, where it just kind of rewrote the record book on what a September is going to look like.
Totally, and for that movie, it represented nearly 50% of the box office in September, that one movie, Beetlejuice. But I think we're going to see, and we're already seeing it right now and heading into the next 2 months, the home stretch of the year, what a great combination of indie films and major studio films that are on the way. For instance, Venom, The Last Dance, and Conclave are opening this weekend. Last weekend, you had a blockbuster open and a great indie film, so with Anora. So this is really a prime time to be a moviegoer, and I think the thing we need to push in this industry beyond just these numbers, because these numbers to us, they're really interesting. To moviegoers, they just want to know what's in your theaters. Marketing is key.
Well, it comes down to what it's always been from day one, and it's always about the content. And last year, as we were going into the home stretch, we talked about it was going to be a little thin, and we had Five Nights at Freddy, we had Taylor Swift, and we had a couple of Japanese films that kind of filled the gap a little bit. And then, of course, Wonka came in and kind of closed the deal for everybody. But it was a bit of a bumpy ride, I would say.
It was a bumpy ride, but I think the cool thing too is that all the event cinema is so key. And I was at the trailer, when they did all the presentation, the trailers, all the great
Swing attractions, yes.
Swing attractions. And what an amazing array of films that are on.
We'll get to that. We're going to get to that in a second.
Right.
But I did want to point out, though, is we just showed you all the headlines from the doom and gloom, and then a mere 6 weeks later, oh look!
Yeah, I don't
He's back, Paul.
Yeah, this was literally a month after the great segue, Mike. Worked really well on the audio version too. This is really, if you take a look at those headlines, so it was week after week of, and let's not forget, we were talking about older franchises. Alien.
Yes.
Remember that first release, Scott Alien? Amazing.
1979. I was an usher at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood. So.
And I was probably a patron there.
There you go.
You might have kicked me out of one of your theaters.
Probably.
But yeah, so look at those headlines. That's what happens though. And the audiences do read these headlines. I mean, this is the AP Wall Street Journal. I talk to the journalists every single week, and the mood, it's sort of like the emotions in Inside Out too. We went from glad to sad to happy in one weekend, but we kept that momentum going. And even though September was a little bit slow, and this is the roller coaster ride. This is what happens. And those headlines that we saw earlier really were predicting the demise of the theater basically because of a sliver of time where things were not like knocking out of the park. And think of this business. This is not a widget distributing business. So every week it's a brand new movie with brand new marketing. You're creating for the audience in a very short amount of time the awareness and then the want to see factor for all these movies. But
well, and the difference between, and as we get to the home stretch, so we're 11.8% behind. We're going to close the gap, no doubt, between now and the end of the year. If we get, whether we close it all the way, that's kind of up for debate, I guess. But, look at this. And these are just some of the films that are highlighted.
November 22nd, everyone's trying to come up with a great name for Gladiator 2 and Wicked.
I've seen some that are not very good.
Some we can't.
Yeah, I'm not.
But yeah, that's a great lineup. And I actually saw the Craven trailer yet, a Red Band trailer. I love Red Band trailers. Keep those coming. That movie looks amazing. All these films, and Moana 2 is going to be a small screen play. It's now a big screen movie. So I think the latter part of this year, now these are all the blockbusters, but there's a lot of specialized film awards contenders that are going to be in the mix. And my personal pick for Christmas Day, Mike, you're going to go with me. On Christmas Day, we're going to see Nosferatu.
Oh, I like it. There you go.
It's Christmas like a good vampire movie. And, The Exorcist opened December 26th, which was a Wednesday.
Is that right?
Yeah, in 1973.
Very nice. Very nice.
There is precedent. The devil may be doing. But I win.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you so much. But bottom line to that is, and really one of the reasons we wanted to show the headlines are, you can't get caught up one way or the other on how the press is going with it. Like I said, it's a bit of low-hanging fruit depending how the box office is going. And let's get to the end of the year and see where we really are. But taking into consideration that there were a lot of challenges in the first half of 2024.
And I think 25 looks like it's going to have an incredible cadence, that movement in the box office, because we're not hamstrung by disruption to the production schedule, the release calendar and the like. So I think 25, and from what I saw at the coming attractions yesterday, wow. And in the movie theaters, just even seeing trailers in movie theaters, so impactful. And obviously, the small screen the promotion of films via YouTube and others, when you see millions of views for these trailers, that's really important as well. So you get people migrating from their homes to the movie theater, and that's really an important part of it as well.
I think that's something that Brandon and his panel will have after this, where we'll talk about a little bit more of the innovative ways and the way things are changing in movie marketing. It's not the same old anymore, and you're seeing it not only from a marketing standpoint, but you're seeing it in the performance of films as well.
That's right. And I'm really excited to see how the end of the year goes. I mean, we're in the home stretch now, so the press will really be reporting on the year-end numbers. And again, I think it's really important that we talk about the movie-going experience. I mean, obviously at ComScore we do all the numbers, that's my thing, but I'm more about more about the content and that movie theater experience. We need to keep pushing how important that is and how it's differentiated so dramatically from the home viewing experience, which I love. If you want people to watch at home too, that gets them excited to also go out and see a movie in a theater.
Bollywood changed things up a little bit. I think we all know we're on the box office. One of the things I'd like to do is ShowEast is going to be giving out their first Legend Award, and it's to a guy that I know really well, I've worked with for several years, and I think everybody in the room knows, and that's Richie Fay. And,
yeah, Richie.
So we thought, prior to Richie getting his award tomorrow, we'd kind of sit down with Richie and hear a little bit about his career. Hello, Richie.
Good morning, Richie.
Good to see you.
Great to see you. Have a seat. Yeah, you gotta go to the hot seat.
There you go.
Is this like a D-box or something with vibrator?
Yeah,
That's
let's start moving.
It's a shaky seat. You'll be good. How you doing, Richie?
I'm doing well.
I'm good. It's a little early. Paul wanted to do this. Paul's whole dream is it becomes Ticket to Ride after dark.
Yes,
It's too early for him.
it is.
Well,
For
coming from
Richie, I got a birthday.
it's early for all of us, or some of us anyway.
So Richie, you and I obviously worked together for several years back at Lionsgate.
Yeah.
But every story has a beginning.
Yeah.
Where did Richie Fay start?
It started, it's kind of a simple beginning. It started in 1971 when I graduated from Iona College in Rochelle. And having worked my way through college, one of my 3 jobs was working at Macy's. And they had an executive training program coming up in October. And I had bills to pay. So prior to that, I went on an interview at Warner Brothers in Manhattan, and I got the job. So it came down to start working in September and start paying off some of those bills, or wait till October. So I took the first job that came my way.
And what was the first job?
I was the assistant print booker to a gentleman by the name of Perry Stowe. And I remember distinctly, my salary was $125 a week. And that was it, out of college. And, and as I said, I had some loans to pay. I was eventually promoted to a salesperson. And the funny story with that is, along with that came an expense account, which amounted to, I think, was like $12 a week at that time. And I was dying to save up for a stereo, so I took those $12 checks and stashed them, and figured when it got to the amount that I needed, which was about $300, I'd buy my stereo set. And about 6 months into my stashing those checks, I got called into my boss's office, and he said, we have a problem with you. I said, oh, here we go. And he said, what have you been doing with your expense checks? And I said, well, I've been stashing them because I'm saving up for something. He said, well, if you don't need the money, he said, we can do something with that. And I said, that's okay, I'll cash them in right away.
So literally, you were not cashing the check.
No, I was not, no.
I like that you were saving up for a stereo.
Yeah.
I figured Paul would enjoy that.
An 8-track action.
Back then, there was no 8-track, actually.
Okay.
It was vinyl.
Well, I know, that's my thing.
78s, anyway. No. So, you're doing sales. What territory were you doing?
I started with Upper New York State, so I handled Albany and Buffalo and Syracuse. And then eventually, having gotten to know people in the industry, my brother-in-law, who also worked in the industry, Johnny Gracia, suggested that I go speak to the folks at Lowe's, because they were looking to replace a gentleman over there by the name of Monroe Sumholtz, and he was their film buyer. And I went over and I met with Frank Patterson and Frank Welton, and eventually Bernie Meyerson, and they hired me. How silly of them. And that was 1975, and I was hired literally 2 weeks before I was to be married and go on my honeymoon. So I had to explain that to them that, well, yeah, I'm kind of committed, and they gave me the time off without pay. And I spent about 12 years or so at Lowe's at that point in time.
And then, when you were at Lowe's, how have you seen the business change from then to today?
Well, there's a common thread that you guys touched on, and it's movies are a habit, and I think as long as you feed that habit, it's almost an addiction. You get people to come back week after week, and when there's a lull, that's when you see the box office drop, obviously. But to get that back again takes a little bit of time. And I will also point out that when I started, the big threat to movies was cable TV, believe it or not. People were saying, well, this is the end of folks going to the movies. Well, we survived that. We survived home video. We survived Betamax and everything else, all the way to just recently with streaming. We've been able to adapt, and quite frankly, we've done it in the theatrical side in such a great way that we've benefited from it, and they've benefited from us.
What were the movies that really impacted you coming up through your career that you remember that were notable, either that you just personally liked or that were notable in terms of your work in the industry?
Well, my favorite movie, if that's what I have two, actually The Searchers with John Wayne is top of the list, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
And that's one I was working at UA Pictures at the time, and I remember distinctly going to the screening and coming home and telling my wife and my father-in-law at the time, I said, I think I saw the next Academy Award-winning movie, and it just crocked them. So it was, to have that kind of foresight, I felt, maybe I should keep on doing this.
Glad you did.
At what point then was it that you came to the dark side and started working on distribution?
Well, I kind of bounced a little bit. I started out in distribution, obviously, then went to Lowe's, and then to United Artists Theaters.
Yes.
And then from UA Theaters, I went to Sony, and Jeff Blake hired me because he said, quite frankly, you've been such a pain in the ass as an exhibitor, I think I got to hire you just to get you out of my hair. And if you remember Jeff Blake, he had a lot of hair. So anyway, so I went to Sony, and then I had a lunch with Stan Gerwig while I was at Sony, and he was the chairman of AMC. Some of you might remember. And off of that lunch, I was 10 months into a 3-year contract. And from that lunch, Stan reached out to Sid Ganis at Sony and asked if he could hire me. And I didn't know any of this was going on behind the scenes. And I got a call at home that night from Pat Notaro. Then Pat, sweet guy, he said, "What did you do today?" And I said, "Well, I this, that, the other thing." And I said, because I'm in New York and he's in California, so I said, and by the way, I had lunch with Stan Gerwig. "Oh, really? And what did you talk about?" And I said, "Just, the industry in general," and I was trying to straighten out an issue that we had with them in Philadelphia at the time. So he said, "Well, Stan called Sid Ganis, who called Jeff Blake, who called me, and he wants to hire you." And I was in deep shock, believe me, because I had told the family when I got the job at Sony they were going to move me out to California. And Jeff at the time said, you're doing pretty good. We're going to give you Canada and stay on the East Coast. So we had to reverse things with the family and say, guess what, we're staying. Well, now the job for AMC was obviously in California. So I worked out my issues with Sony and went over to exhibition and spent almost, I guess it was 10 years plus at AMC. And there, with a change in corporate structure, what have you, they decided they wanted to move the film office to Kansas City. And I decided to stay behind, and I started literally the Monday after we closed the office in LA in Woodland Hills. I had a breakfast meeting with Rob Friedman, and we discussed Summit, putting the Summit distribution team together. And about a year and a half later, we restarted Summit. Maybe 3 to 5 pictures into it, we got this property called Twilight. And the rest, as they say, is history.
And then Lionsgate
bought out
Summit in 12.
Right.
And that's when Richie and I started working.
Although I must tell you, I don't want to use any of my ammunition for tomorrow, but I met Mike when he was dating one of my film buyers, Lisa Lewin.
That is correct.
And no, I'm not going to say any more. I got to save it for tomorrow.
Oh boy. I want to get personal for a minute. A couple things. I know you're a great chef. Can you talk about your love of cooking?
Oh,
Y'all want to know, right? The secret sauce.
I was kind of a latchkey kid. My dad left my mom before I was born, and she had to go to work to support my sister and myself. So when my sister and mom were both working for, I guess now it would be AT&T, at the time it was Western Electric, I had to come home and start dinner. And just that experience, you know, but it actually, as an aside story, you know, I was a kid. I was in the 6th grade, maybe. My deal was, for the most part, put the baked potatoes on, all right? And there was one day, I remember distinctly, I was out farting around, and again, I forgot about the damn potatoes. So I came in about 15 minutes before they were due to get home, and I cranked the oven up to like 800 degrees, but as high as I could, and sat down at the dining room table and made it look like I was doing my homework. My mother and sister come in, and the first thing they did was, you know, how's dinner? You know, we ready? And I said, yeah, well, the potatoes in the oven. I said, I'll go check them while they were changing. And I opened the potatoes, and I put in 3 potatoes. But there were 6 potatoes in the damn oven. And I for the life of me, I couldn't figure out where the hell did the other 3 potatoes come from. All that happened was, because I cranked the oven up so high, and I didn't poke holes in the skin, the potatoes literally popped out of their skins and sat next to the skins in the oven. And I'm looking, and I said, geez, I don't know how to explain this. And my mom came in and opened the oven, and she looked at me, and she knew exactly what happened. And she turned around and she hit me over the head with a wooden spoon.
I'm so glad I asked about that. But you moved on to Sunday gravy and meatballs.
Yeah, that was a tradition. Yeah, that's something my wife and I started and continued with both daughters when they found boyfriends and eventually husbands. And Sunday mornings I'd start the sauce and she'd finish it off, and we'd all have dinner later in that evening. And always.
Remember, Mike and I live near you, so we'll come over anytime.
Well, and Richie, we had you, I think a lot of you may remember a few times, Richie actually was down in the kitchen of the hotel cooking meatballs for the convention.
Yeah, that was fun. Well, it was better than the alternative, and that would be meeting with you guys. So.
I remember at the Diplomat Hotel where they used to have it. You were outside and we were all in a line. Please, may I have some more?
Yeah, that was.
It's the whole.
You got the best was when you got David Spitz in the kitchen.
Yes.
David had no idea that it was going to be manually making meatballs.
Yeah.
And I think David, for those who know, thought that Richie was going to be supervising. No, we go down in the kitchen and there's Richie with this big vat of sauce, and then David's like doing this with the meatball.
Well, and Mike kind of snookered me on that one too, because he was going to show that live at one of the theaters prior to a screening we had that afternoon, and he asked if it was okay if they could put a camera in the kitchen with me, and I said, sure, that's fine. Well, when I cook, I listen to Italian music, so I think there was Dean Martin doing whatever, and I'm singing along with it, and this guy turned on the video, and I didn't know it. So the audience...
Yeah, we had a screening over at the theater. We had the meatball cam going live, and Richie's singing away, not knowing anything.
Where can we find this video?
Yeah. Put that on mine. So after you left Lionsgate, I know now you're working with Kevin Mitchell, Showbiz Direct. You guys just had a big success with the first movie out of the gate with Reagan. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that came together. Kevin and I have been friends for years, and as well as Scott Kennedy. And Kevin called me probably 3 years ago, and I remember this Christmas, we were in New York celebrating Christmas, and said, I have a project, and how quickly can we put people together to handle the film? And I said, well, I can call Scott. Scott had his company up and running. And I said, we can do it pretty quickly. That particular movie did not work out, but subsequently, Reagan came along, and Kevin was friendly with Mark Joseph, and Sean and Dave, who are sitting here tonight, and we'll be showing Bow later, guys, so please try to attend the screening. And he said, well, I've got this other project. And we sat and spoke with Mark and put the team together. They gave us a healthy P&A budget, which we spent with Mike, and the rest, as they say, is history. We're just shy of $30 million for our first effort. Not too shabby.
Speaking of Sean and David, we should bring them up right now.
Absolutely.
Sean, David, come on up. This is Sean McNamara, the director of Reagan. Brookwell. Sean. Sean, David, just wanted to say congratulations on all the success with Reagan. I think you guys opened a lot of eyes, and again, Richie, to you, Kevin, and Scott, for launching a new independent in a not always the easiest circumstances. Sean, a little background with you guys. Where what's your background? How did you come into this wacky business?
It's the same old story. My dad bought me a camera when I was 12, and I just wanted to be a filmmaker. But I started out as like a PA. I did audio. I did every job because all I wanted to do was direct. And as I was pouring coffee for people, I'd just say, "Head, I'm a director." And that I just kept telling the narrative, kept going like that. And eventually got a movie. I think I got Three Ninjas Part 3 with Hulk Hogan in the 90s. That was Sony distributed, so it was like the first theatrical. I think it made $300,000 at the box office. And then it just went from there. We just kept going. But I want to thank ShowEast Direct, because when I went to CinemaCon in, what month was it? You guys did a trailer that blew me away, because the film was not done because of the strike. We couldn't get the actors back to record anything. And I remember sitting in that suite in Vegas, and my jaw dropped. It was the most incredible trailer I'd ever seen. And I went, from that point, we had to finish the film, and you guys just pulled a miracle together to get it out with the distribution. So I want to thank ShowEast Direct.
Thank you for the material.
Exactly.
David, how did you get your start?
I'm sorry, well,
How did you get your start?
I met this guy 27 years ago. Actually more, because before we started our company, we're going to go on 27 years in March as Brookwell McNamara Entertainment. But yeah, I was a kid from Chicago, born in Jersey. My dad was moving around, and I went to college in Malibu, California, Pepperdine. And
There's worse places to go than college than
Pepperdine. I remember my dad pulling up to the school. He gets out of the car and he's looking around. He goes, "Where's the first tee?" I'm sending my son to a country club. Yeah, that was my introduction to California. And right out of college, I got a job at 20th Century Fox. And it's, we're doing a lot of press junkets. And so I actually worked on the marketing and distribution side in my first job. Then got into independent television and met this guy. And we spent a lot of time doing a lot of television shows. Worked for Disney for about 6 years, where we cut our teeth. And
What were some of the shows we might know that you worked on?
well, we did Even Stevens. Yeah, if you were a 12-year-old kid back then.
Oh yeah.
And then we did That's So Reagan. About 100 episodes of that.
I think everyone knows that one.
So it was a grind, but this guy wanted to do movies, so he started directing more and more movies, and I'm just holding on to his coattails.
And Sean, I attended the Reagan premiere at the Chinese Theater, full house, red carpet. Being in the business for this long, and having your original camera, you got inspired to do filmmaking or become a filmmaker. What was that experience like for you to be at that premiere, to be in that situation?
Well, it's the most incredible thing. I'm sure you've all been to the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, and just to have that place to show Reagan was just a highlight. You couldn't believe it, and Dennis was there. It was fantastic, and it was a big deal, and we literally, the film was so wet, just dropping it in the last. I was working 24 hours finishing, so I'd have a screening ready for that premiere. So we got it done, but it was a fantastic life experience to watch.
It played so well in that room, and it's just a great premiere, and look how exciting. And the movie is done so well, and you have another movie that we're going to talk about as well.
Yeah, tonight, the Ballot Artist Awards playing. I'd love you guys to all come see it. If you saw Schindler's List, there was a couple who got married in the Plaszow concentration camp, and we went to Tel Aviv and we got the rights to their story from their kids. And it's a love story, and we follow it, and it's incredible. So you think, oh, Holocaust movie, I'm not so sure, but when you see it, you find that incredible love story. That's what I think the magic is, and it feels like cinema. I mean, my gosh, I want to see everything on the big screen. That's every time when you guys were talking about earlier, we have to keep people going to the big screen because it is that experience, and there's nothing like experiencing a movie with a group of people. So, but please come and see Ballot Artist Award.
The trailer is so good for Ballot Artist Award. Really evokes all that. It's a comedy, it's a drama. There's so many layers to it, and it beautifully shot. I'm sure the cinematography is very different than for Reagan, but I'm sure you're using a different palette for this film. And Emile Hirsch, what a great actor as well.
He's an incredible actor, and Inbar Lobby, you're gonna hear a lot from her. She's an incredible actress who plays Rebecca Bow. Yeah, so the two of them together, this love story is it's incredible. When you watch it, you go, I can't believe this happened, but it's all true.
Yeah. And Sean, looking at your filmography, you tend to gravitate toward these inspirational stories. Films like, you may not know it, but Sean directed Soul Surfer a few years ago, which was a big hit for Sony. What kind of gravitates you to that type of genre?
I mean, I grew up on Rocky. That was that film that you walked out of Rocky and you were just so inspired. So anytime I can do inspirational movies, that's what it's all about for me. Because everybody becomes the lead character of that movie, and they see themselves in that character. If they can just do a little bit more, they can break through. So I try to make inspirational movies that have some visual. Like you said, Soul Surfer, that was the surfing, the backdrop. It wasn't really about surfing. It was about getting back on the board, coming back. We all have those experiences, but if we can do it in a cinematic way, I think that really works for audiences.
David, do you get together with Sean and you decide what you're going to work on next? Are you looking for properties? Are you looking for stories, and then you edit each other, or you bring things to each other and collaborate on, hey, what are we going to do next?
There's no shortage of great ideas out there. I mean, there's people every day that are inspirations. The tough part about it is, turning their story into, 90 or 100-minute piece of entertainment. And Sean always teased on, what's the visual, and sort of enhance that. But yeah, I mean, it's great to put good out in the world. We've got another one that's coming called On Fire, and it was an independent film that we shot in St. Louis, and that's the next one that we're polishing and getting ready.
It's really cool. And then you're doing the production part, obviously, and then you work with Richie and his team, and then to work with exhibition. So it's really cool to right here have the whole chain of that, the inspiration, the production, and then shepherding it to the big screen, and then working with exhibition.
Yeah, well,
on the big screen.
we firmly believe, and I'll speak for Kevin Mitchell, we firmly believe that exhibitors are our true partners in this business. And we go so far as to say, we've got a film, this is the story, this is the way it looks, what's a good date? And then we go from there. But everything we intend to do at Showbiz is done in a very transparent manner, so that the filmmakers are comfortable with us, exhibition is comfortable with us, and we engage folks like Mike and his team to get the materials together properly and get them into the theater. So it's a true collaboration, and you don't get hung up in the big studio. I'm not knocking the big studios, but you don't get hung up in the bureaucracy that goes on at the big studios. I see Pat making faces, sorry. Oh. But we between Scott, myself, and Kevin, you can get the decisions made probably in an afternoon.
Kevin's right there.
So real quick, I don't know if there are any questions out there as we're going to wrap up the morning, this piece as we lead into the next one. Anybody with any?
Come on up or shout it out.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming out today. We're looking forward to the movie this
Go see the
afternoon.
movie, it screens, well, it says right there, 5:30.
Yes.
Buses are leaving now. Oh yeah, and then Frank Tees, where's Frank? Frank, come on up.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Take us a ride. So much.
She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't